Hey y'all, and welcome to The Wannabe Author. I'm Taryn, a writer figuring out how to turn my publishing dream into reality, one chaotic step at a time. This is the place where we talk books, writing struggles, mental health, and everything in between. Whether you're a writer, a reader, or just curious about the process, I am so glad you're here. Let's jump in. I get so nervous doing this stuff. Hey y'all, and welcome back to The Wannabe Author. I'm your host, Taryn Christine, and before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce our phenomenal guest that we have today. I was so lucky to have the opportunity to interview my hero and greatest source for information on mental health and resilience. Growing up, I was blessed to spend years listening to talks, lessons, interviews in which my guest today led and participated in. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Many know her for her therapy groups that specialized in betrayal trauma healing for women. Our guest has given years of time, energy, and love to people all around her and continues to be an influence for intelligence, strong mental health, and an example of unwavering dedication to friends, family, faith, and career. Today, she will be exploring the topic of how writing and reading impact our mental health. From imposter syndrome, rejection, burnout, self-doubt, books bringing us to tears, and acting as great escapes. It is my honor to introduce you all to Tiffany Moser. Hi, Mom. Welcome to my podcast.
Well, I feel so privileged to be here.
Well, you're
our pre-record material.
yeah. Well, you're like the main guest I wanted on here. Okay,
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Mom, I'm so nervous.
Breathing and meditation.
I'm in. Can you walk me through this? I'll do my positions.
You gotta pay me a session fee.
Oh, okay. No, you're my free therapist. What are you talking about? All right. Well, I like to start out by talking about current reads, any favorite reads. And since you are a mental health therapist and stuff, we can do because I know you're always reading the important stuff and then the less kind of important stuff. So if you want to give a good fun read and a smart read, we can begin.
What I'm reading for the professional, just furthering my professional repertoire right now is Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation. Really great. He's compiled research since 2010 when smartphones came out. He's compiled all the data that we have to date that is manifesting what impact that had on the mental health of teenagers, of adults, and then he has them divided into genders, how it impacted males, how it impacted females, how it impacted certain ages. So it's pretty fascinating, and it's just great for that information to be getting out there now, because we've always known that it was having an impact, but now we really know it's having negative impact on everyone's overall mental and emotional well-being. So that's I'm actually almost done with that one. And then for my fun read, which has been so great, it was funny because I reached out to you to see if you had any recommendations. Oh, yeah. And I was like, I'm wanting something like Jane Austen, like taking place in England, like a history back in the day, I was like, no. And my cousin had posted online these novels that she was just loving, and they're called the Unselected. What is it? The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon.
Yeah.
By Beth Brower, I think is her last name.
Yep.
Brower. Oh my gosh, I cannot even tell you how much I'm enjoying. I'm like, I literally have the book in my hand and my highlighter, and I'm highlighting the one-liners because I'm just giggling and having the best time. It's been the best. So now I'm already on volume 5. She has 8 out so far.
Wait, that's so fun.
they're quick fun reads. They're not long, but they're it's like she tells the story through her journal entries, so it's creative and it's super cute, and I'm just loving it. And I've got like everyone that I can get reading it right now with me, so we can send the one-liners to each other.
Oh, stop. I love that. Is it like Bridgerton vibes?
It's rated G for sure. Rated G, rated PG. So definitely not very.
Well, I just mean like the olden like romance kind of.
Well, there's been very little romance.
Really?
It's building up for possibilities for romance, and so the whole time you're thinking, which one of it is she gonna end up with?
Aww.
It's fantastic writing. I love it. I can't get enough of it. But I would say it's more of like an Anne of Green Gables, like a lot of funny. She gets in tons of funny scrapes. She's just trying to figure out the world. She's an orphan.
Aww.
And she inherits. This is all in the very first part of the first novel, so I'm not spoiling anything. But
yeah,
she's an orphan, and she inherits this house from a distant relative. And so all she has to her name is this house, but she has no income. And so she's trying to figure out how to live but support this inherited house. It's hilarious. I love it. I'm seriously just enjoying. I haven't enjoyed a book like this in a long time. So.
Oh, good. Yeah. I definitely will have to look into that then. Get over my historical fiction weirdness.
I think you would love it. But if you like Anne of Green Gables,
I was raised on the movies. I never read the book.
Oh, okay.
But I do love the story.
It's very similar vibe. Jane Austen, Anne of Green Gables, definitely similar.
Okay, I'll definitely have to look into that.
A lot of time spent on that, but I'm very passionate right now.
I love that for you so much.
It's been a good time.
Good. I'm trying to think of what I'm currently reading. So I started. Oh crap. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score.
Must read, for sure.
It is so good. It's like I knew all this stuff because of you. You've taught me so much, but it's nice. It's interesting seeing it in the examples he provides and stuff. That's been very interesting. Also, because I'm using it as research for my book that's out on submission to make sure I got details and experiences correctly. It's nice being able to be like, oh, I did good. You know, like.
Nailed that.
Uh-huh. I know trauma. Just kidding. But it is yeah. Well, so I've been reading that. Love it. And then my fun read, I'm rereading Iron Flame. Have you heard of the Fourth Wing series?
I don't think so. Who writes that?
So it's Rebecca Yarros. Remember I told you to read the Things We Leave Unfinished by her? Yeah. So she's a romance author that did fantasy.
Okay.
And she's been coming out with the series, and the second book is Iron Flame. The third book comes out in end of January. So I'm trying to hurry and do my reread of the second book to be ready for that one.
Things We Left Unfinished, I even remember. Is that the one with the letters?
It's the grandma who sends her the letters, right. And it's a World War II. Yep. Scarlet.
Fun from Bessel van der Kolk. Where are you at in that book?
Chapter 5, maybe?
So we covered that one in our phase 3 betrayal trauma group. So it made up a lot of the women that had been through already the first, second, and then they were in the third phase, and each was a year long. So these women were well seasoned into their trauma healing. and we read that book together. And what I've noticed with that book is the first half is super heavy, and the women did so good because they had had done their work, and so they were able to handle that. But the first half of the book's really heavy, and then the last half is like super hopeful about all the treatments and all the success of the current treatments that we're having in the field. And if someone's experienced trauma, like what other forms of therapy might be out there that you wouldn't think of that would treat trauma. So hang in there through the first half.
Okay.
Heavy stuff with a lot of examples that can be pretty hard to hear.
For sure.
The second half, that's what everyone, the feedback that came back was they were so glad that we did that in the beginning, because then the next half we left on this really high note of hope and healing and all the exciting things that are happening in the trauma field.
Oh, good. Oh,
just wanted to make sure you knew.
No, I actually didn't need to know that, because what was it? I think it was chapter 1. I was crying. I was like, what the? Yeah, that was rough. Well, speaking on Bessel van der Kolk, this episode was kind of, sparked by him. I was listening to an interview of him and Diary of a CEO, and he kind of touched on how traumatized people are artists, the authors, and musicians. So I wanted to get into all the emotional and mental health stuff regarding that, and wanted to start out by asking you, why do you think creative pursuits like writing can be so emotionally taxing for people?
Whenever you are a deep feeler and then you put emotions out there, I just feel like creatives and especially ones that are following passion are putting a lot of their emotions into things. So someone that maybe lives a little bit surface level with their emotions and doesn't get as deep, I don't think I think they're dissociated a little bit from life's experiences. So I think it's interesting to have this conversation, because then who might be the more unhealthy, the one that doesn't feel the exhaustion or the burnout, or the ones that don't feel? So I think that when you are feeling your emotions appropriately and you're a deep feeler, I feel like you do know when you're exhausted and you do know when you're tired. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that you're in tune with your emotions and where you're at physiologically, and it sometimes I think gets portrayed as a bad thing, but I think it actually is a sign of some overall being in touch with yourself and your own emotions.
So when people are experiencing burnout, maybe not beat themselves up as much and realize, no, I need to take a step back, and it's good that I recognize that.
And, like I said, it's obviously a case by case basis, but one isn't necessarily a sign of, optimal health. You'd have to do an assessment on each individual, but just because you're experiencing burnout definitely wouldn't be an indication that you are less healthy or aren't doing something right. If you're feeling burnout, it's a really good idea to be in tune to that, so you take a step back and get some self-care.
Love that. Love that. I know you have met with many different people on all walks of life. What are some common mental health challenges you've seen in writers or other creative professionals?
Particular, it's really hard to say particular to certain type of professions for me. I would say probably the only pattern that I've really noticed as far as experiencing a little bit more of a weight on their mental health as a pattern would be actually the first responders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I've noticed a pattern in regards to writers and creators and artists like feeling more stressed than other people. The only pattern I've really noticed would be that my first responders definitely need a little bit more, make sure they're getting a little more care, because just they're getting exposed to a lot of traumatic situations. So it tends to be a little more weighty than other professions.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. But also, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I've seen a lot of, since becoming more integrated with the creator community, with books and writing and all of the things, rejection and trying to, cope with that, because there is a lot of rejection in what we're doing. Rejection is a huge hurt for a lot of people. So since it is part of the process for writers, whether it's from agents, editors, or even readers, but it doesn't make it any easier, obviously, what advice do you have for writers who are struggling to handle rejection?
Anyone that has to deal with rejection, particular to your population in your community, obviously they're putting themselves out there in a very vulnerable way, and they will get rejected. It's like not if it happens, it's when it happens, because it's just part of the process. But also other people experience rejection. People that are in the dating field and looking for potential romantic partners, or even a stay-at-home mom wanting to find a group of friends and not getting calls, following that from, everyone has to deal with rejection on a certain level. And Guy Winch is a psychologist that specializes in rejection, actually, and he points out, and a lot of professionals you'll hear will point out, that rejection actually registers the same in our brain as physical pain.
Really?
So, if you're monitoring someone's brain and they experience a physical pain as getting cut or hurt, the same place in the brain fires as when someone experiences a feeling of rejection. And so, of course, our mind and our body are going to be so adverse to experiencing rejection. So what I do with a lot of my clients that come in and have been wounded or traumatized from rejection is building that window of tolerance for that, instead of shying away from it, because oftentimes rejection, we have to keep pushing through rejection to get to our goal.
Yeah.
But if our brain is registering it as physical pain, of course we're going to want to draw away from that. So I tell my clients, you got to remember that that's how the brain is registering it. So if you build your tolerance for it, which there's several ways that you can do that, which we can go into if you would like, but you'll want to build your tolerance for that and keep your end goal in mind, because you will never reach your potential or your ultimate end goal if the rejection gets in your way, because you will stop trying.
Yeah.
And wherever you're experiencing rejection, whether it's making friends, getting a promotion at work, in the dating world, or in your community, some writing rejections and submitting content and creative submissions, you're going to get a lot of rejections there before you're going to get a yes.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Regarding like specifics, like you were saying, I think something that's kind of helped me, I have a Mel Robbins obsession as of late. She's so fantastic. And she just came out with her new book, The Let Them Theory. And every time I think of her Let Them Theory and I hear her speak more, I think of your analogy of holding your wastebasket, and when things come, you just kind of toss them in your wastebasket. So that's been very much on my mind as of late, especially with dealing with rejection, since I am on submission with my debut novel and having just experienced my first rejection from a publishing house. It was actually quite easy to just kind of be like, okay, let's move forward. I'm going to toss that in my bin. Yes. Like, take notes, obviously. and be like, okay, what do I need to learn from that? But also let them reject so that I can let myself move forward and find who will better fit me. I don't know if that's kind of what along the lines you would be thinking.
So that would be more of like a symbolic approach. So you're symbolically letting them away. So that is using symbolism. Creative people are actually really good at using stuff like that. So I think it's super telling and insightful that that's something that you would have thought about.
Thank you.
Because you're very creative. But using those experiential or symbolic, like the basket is symbolic of just throwing that away and I'm going to move forward. Or some people will write their pains and their disappointments out on paper journal, because a writer often will do that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
burn it, as a symbolism of, okay, now that's gone and I'm going to move forward. So there's lots of experiential or symbolic um, interventions or ways to increase that window of tolerance for rejection. Another way, which I'm a specialist in EMDR, it's a certain, it is specific to building windows of tolerance for something that was intolerable originally, which is usually understandable why it was intolerable. After doing EMDR can potentially then be tolerable. And it's, if you listen to Bessel van der Kolk in regards to EMDR, that's exactly how he explains it, as well as that the treatment makes what was once intolerable for the mind, body, soul, emotions, what felt intolerable or that you couldn't face, then becomes something that can be tolerated. So people can go into therapy and actually get EMDR on rejection. Maybe they just rejection, or maybe they're entering the dating field, but they're terrified of being rejected. You can do future rejection. If you know their rejection is going to be part of the process, you can actually go and get future template EMDR target treatment. If you've had some rejections that have really annihilated your confidence and your desire to keep, putting yourself out there, therapy is definitely an option. Getting EMDR for that to see some of that rejection can get integrated in a way that no longer feels intolerable, and then there's space for an individual to, okay, I can put myself out there again. It's pretty fascinating to see people come in first saying, I will never be able to do that, I'll never be able to have the courage, that was so painful, and then after doing EMDR being able to be like, all right, I'm ready. They'll put themselves out there and be able to do what they once thought they'd never be able to do again. So it's pretty inspiring.
No, that's so interesting. I mean, obviously I know EMDR because of you, but I didn't realize you can, like, it's a pre-therapy too.
Yeah,
That's very, that's very interesting. And it's cool to see that there are actual things you can do to combat those feelings instead of just, because as creatives and being in the field of it, seeing how people deal with it, it has been mainly symbolic. So that's what I was expecting, was more like affirmations and stuff, but to hear there are actual things you can do to step in and recover before you've even been broken down is very interesting. I love that. Okay. So with rejection, it can be emotionally an emotional toll. Obviously, we just talked about that, but back to burnout and how that is also a part of it. Like, not only the rejection and feeling like you're not enough, but like keeping going. There's a lot of writers that are juggling full-time jobs, like me, like yours truly. Families, deadlines. How can we recognize the signs of burnout before it gets overwhelming? Which we've talked about, that it's good to be able to notice, but how can we recognize it before it becomes too much and it puts us in a hole where we can't pull ourselves out immediately? Or
I think it's having the self-discipline to not take on too much to begin with. Having self-boundaries is what everyone talks about, having boundaries with others and being like, I'm going to tell you how to treat me. But the most important boundaries and most effective boundaries are boundaries of self. am I making time for self-care in my day? Am I saying no to things that aren't necessary or too much right now for me, given what I'm trying to accomplish? Especially um, people, young artists and writers that are wanting to really pursue their path and put their passion into their career and the possibilities there. It's not going to be possible to put as much passion as you want and string yourself so thin everywhere else. So you're going to have to be willing to tell friends no and tell family no in regards to extra obligations, and really communicate clearly if you're in a relationship or you're in a marriage, that you're communicating with your partner and making specific time where you guys can reconnect, but that they're also on board of the time and focus you're going to put on. Because a lot of the burnout can come from loved ones and friends and family that are upset at you because you're not showing up, or they don't understand why you're not texting as much or coming to lunch as much, or maybe your spouse is upset that we're not doing date night anymore. So a lot of that pressure can cause burnout as well. Not having the self-care that you need, which when I say self-care, I mean appropriate diet, appropriate sleep, appropriate physical fitness routine. Those would be the main three. Getting some daily sun exposure, making sure that that's in your day. Other signs of burnout would be when you're thinking of a responsibility that you do and you start feeling frozen, or you start getting behind, you start not answering emails, you start yeah, and you can notice your lots of things backing up and piling on the plate. And really, a lot of that, the answer to a lot of that is just you've got to have boundaries with yourself and be willing to say no to the extra stuff, and say no to yourself. You're not going to be able to binge watch movies. You're not going to be able to read a lot of books. You're not going to be able to do a lot of the other things that you were passionate about when you need to focus so much on this one thing, and if you're going to be successful. Because those things ultimately, when we talk about self-care in our groups, we tell the women self-care isn't bathtub, bubble baths and chocolate and massages. It can be, but it usually isn't. It's usually getting the things off your plate that are the highest priority actually gives more of a mental and emotional boost than anything else. And so making sure you're attending to your priorities and not putting them off, and going and reading a book instead. But this is on the side. A lot of people will say, well, but you need self-care. I know that those dishes in the sink or that deadline that needs to be met is going to uh, take way more energy away from, someone that just went and read a book for their own self-care, because that weight just gets bigger. So reading the book actually didn't provide what it would if everything else was taken care of. So just figuring out self-care and what that really means, and boundaries are a big part of that. Boundaries of self.
Very enlightening and also humbling.
For all of us. For all of us.
I'm like thinking of my 350 unread text messages, my dishes piled in the sink.
Yes. We've all been there, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, and I actually just pointed this out to Brendan, my husband, and I had spent a whole day actually writing, and I felt like crap afterwards. I was like, I got so much done, but I didn't work out. I didn't go outside. I didn't do like those self-care things you were talking about, and I didn't eat. And I was like, I just feel like crap. So then the next day I made sure to get up early, to go work out, go on a walk in the sun, and to eat appropriate meals and stuff. And I got so much more done at a higher quality regarding my writing. So I definitely I see exactly what you're saying. Like, and in my own.
And that day, you may not have gotten as much on paper, but
Mhm.
how you felt after, the reward is so much greater as far as the promoting your mental and emotional well-being, because
Mhm.
that combination of stress and then that healthy self-care just goes such a long way. So then you still have energy to give to your relationships at night or other obligations that you might have.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, we're gonna do a little detour. Slight subject change to reading and writing in general. Reading and writing can have such a profound impact on mental health. In your experience, how can books, both reading and writing them, affect our mental health well-being?
Well, as you know, when I'm encouraging my clients to write, it's usually in the form of a journal.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had very many, per se, authors or writers as clients. Um, so, but many of them benefit from writing their thoughts down. And in fact, even clients that weren't really maybe prone to writing before or drawn to writing before really find benefit in journaling. And we know that it's because if we're in session and we experience something and they have an insight, I always tell them, and a lot of the clients will tell me, this is profound for me. This is making so much sense for me. And I'll say, go home and write about it.
Mm.
And we know that if someone has a profound insight and then goes and puts those thoughts onto paper, the impact, the long-term impact is so much more powerful. And actually, the change or the insight will impact in such a deeper way that then it's more likely to keep impacting or keep affecting the way maybe someone thinks or moves forward, their behaviors moving forward. So writing is such a powerful way of reinforcing those, those insights and those kind of those clarity moments. It's also great for when someone is feeling down to be able to write those feelings out on paper. But I would say that is more effective when you have the guidance of a therapist. I feel like sometimes people will get into a negative spiral, and that negative writing will then do exactly what I just said, but in an opposite way, because it reinforces that negative thought and it reinforces, and because writing is an impactful thing, because we're thinking it and then we're writing it. And so then we're looking at our own writing and it's reinforcing that. So if we're reinforcing through writing negative cognitions, negative maybe those negative narratives that we tell ourselves that are not helpful and that are increasing the likelihood of a lower mood or even depressive or even risk behaviors. We want to make sure that we're realizing that writing can be very powerful, but it can also be powerful in a way that can maybe isn't as productive. So it is a powerful tool, but needs to be wielded maybe with some guidance and with self-awareness. That is what I'm writing helping me? Is this helping me cleanse? Is it improving my mental and emotional well-being, or is it reinforcing things that are problematic and are increasing dysfunction as opposed to helping the situation?
That's so interesting.
The other side of that would be reading.
Mm-hmm.
When my clients will come in and we'll do a session, and I'm very particular about making sure that I then provide resources that my clients, if they so choose, because I cannot force them, if they so choose to read the materials, maybe books or articles that I give that will complement the content that we are working on, or maybe something came up in a session that would really help them to go deeper on. I often will provide those. The clients, obviously, I have a lot of clients that come back and I'll be like, did you read the email I sent? No, I forgot. I'll get to it later. And then I have the clients that are like hungry and they're reading, and those clients their prognosis just tends to be so much higher of benefit, because it's just a way of reinforcing, just like writing, being able to talk about it and then go and read deeper content on that topic just reinforces it in a really powerful way, in a way that if it's like I have 1 hour with a client, but if they go and read, then it's like I had 3 hours with them, and it's in between sessions. And obviously that's to the benefit of my client. I work with whatever they're willing to put into therapy, but I do know, and I have seen over and over, that those that do best in therapy are the ones that are willing to write, journal what they're experiencing, and to read the additional information that I give them on the topics.
Very interesting. This is a little personal thing regarding you saying the writing. What is it? Reinforces. And this is actually funny, and you're gonna laugh at me. But when I was in when I first started writing, and it was actually before I started writing my book, I started out with, I was angry. And I started out with these Pinterest prompts where I would write out small stories using these Pinterest prompts, but they were all angry. And I would reread them over and over again. And you said that, and I was like, oh, I was in this little loop that just kept getting reinforced because, it wasn't exactly empowering literature that I was writing. It was more just angry and feeding off that anger, and probably would be very entertaining for people to read, but was it the healthiest for me? Probably not.
Well, and one thing I'd want to say on that is because if there was a guidance of a therapist, because that isn't necessarily bad, it actually could have been honed into an effective tool where maybe you wrote out the angry stuff, you read it, and then we burned the angry stuff as a symbolic, okay, and now maybe I'm going to move towards what I'm grieving from that. And we move through to the grief, because there's anger and then grief. And then we could do an acceptance letter. Like, this is my reality. So I actually do a writing exercise like that with my clients. It's an anger letter, a grief letter, and then an acceptance letter. So the writing actually leads through the whole process, and the therapist can help guide through that process so that people don't get stuck in the anger. It sounds like that's what you were kind of feeling, like it was just reinforcing over and over the anger. So you weren't wrong what you were doing. It just, that's why I say having someone guide and kind of hone that to make sure it's a therapeutic experience, because even those little shifts could have made that maybe even more effective or powerful for you, to kind of move you through the anger, validate the anger, then maybe into the grief of whatever you're experiencing, and then an acceptance of, this is what the situation is, what is in my control moving forward.
That's okay. I actually feel better about myself now, because I ended up writing my book, and that is very much an acceptance letter of my life, what I've learned, and okay.
I love that. That's beautiful.
That was, well, I always learn something so cool with you. It's fine. We need to just talk all the time. You're like a therapist or something.
What? And a mom.
Well, yeah. Do you know how lucky I am? Like, seriously, stop.
You know it's true.
All I do is write you stories. But just the fact that not a lot of people get this kind of relationship with their mothers. And I'm very, very, very lucky.
Goes both ways.
Thanks, Ma. Okay. Do you think creative expression can help? Oh, just kidding. We just kind of went over that. It's just asking, do you think creative expression can help people heal from trauma, or are there limitations to what art can do? Which obviously that's what we kind of just went through, is yes, you do need guidance though. And EMDR and stuff like that.
You said art in our betrayal trauma groups, we do some art therapy. And we've done some exercises that help guide through that process too. I would say the same can happen with art. If someone's doing really dark, angry, mournful, we want to be able to express what's beautiful. We don't want to get stuck. We want to do a therapeutic process all the way through. And so then we would give them different prompts of things to theme their artistic expression through. And again, just like the writing letter example, we would do that all the way through with the art expression, art therapy.
Okay. I love that. Okay, we're gonna lighten things up at the end here and kind of focus more on our fun books for a second. But
you mean the one I already talked like 20 minutes about?
Well, like kind of the mental health effect that they can have on us. Obviously, that one has a great effect on you. Well, I guess this last question is kind of borderline still serious, but not as serious. Books have always been an escape for me. Who do you think people turn? Why is what I meant to write there. Why do you think people turn to books as a form of escapism? I don't think I said that right.
Maybe a distraction or an escape of sorts, I would say, like a mental, emotional escape from
Mhm.
that, because it really does insert you into a whole different world, whole different life, whole different scenario. I think that books also give insight to different responses that we could possibly have in different situations, and that by putting ourselves into a character and reading about that character can actually help us maybe navigate a relationship issue that we're having in present day, or maybe it's just we needed some relief from just everyday stress, and it just it's interesting because some of my people will read like true crime or like kind of thriller type books to get off their stress, and I'm like, you know what, to each his own. And I everyone, because you would think that would stress people out more, but it's really in tune to what you're needing. Just like I really knew what I wanted. I was asking, remember, I was asking specifically, this is the kind of book that I need right now.
Yeah.
I had just gotten done with a murder mystery right before that.
Really?
And my friend, Erin, we share a passion for reading as well. And she had reached out and was like, I'm in the mood for a true, like a crime or solve a murder, and I'm like, because I just read one. But then I was really needing something a little bit lighter and something that was fun and kind of, historical fiction. I could tell what I was wanting. So I think just being mindful about what you're reading and maybe what you're needing at the time. As far as if you're using it for therapeutic reasons, I think that just reading the next thing just because that just came out or everyone's recommending this thing obviously isn't bad, but if we're trying to use it for a therapeutic reason to escape stress, I think just kind of listening to your body of what you're kind of in the mood for and what would really be helpful. But also, I would say really mixing that up with really good content and furthering education and knowledge with the fun reads, like the fiction reads, I think is a really good combination to in your day have even that diversity within your day. Like every morning I read my professional book or something that I'm trying to further my professional knowledge in, and then I always make time, at least right now. There's been seasons where I haven't been able to, but right now I've been able to make time for professional content in the morning, and then at night I take time to read my fun book at night. So
love that.
I don't know if I answered your question. Did I answer?
No. I think that was it answered, but also gave more context to how people can better take care of themselves as they are using books to escape. So I think that was great. You're so great. Okay, I have a last fun question for you. So, Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, which I've been begging you to read, which you still need to read. There's a character in there named Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, and she healed me in so many ways when I read about her. And actually, it was at the time where I was angry writing, and I do feel that was a huge shift after reading her, was coming to that acceptance of life and everything, and fighting my demons like a fire bitch queen. And so I'm very curious, do you have a book character or even just an author that has healed you?
I've always been one to be drawn, which you know this about me, I've always been one to be drawn to the classics.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed at times of my greatest stress, I'm often drawn to the classic writers. And my favorite novel is Jane Eyre.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that I have tons of like things in common with Jane Eyre, the poor thing. But I am so inspired by people that overcome just the unthinkable. And obviously, sorry, I'm gonna get emotional.
Please do.
I often think that's why I'm drawn to the profession I'm in, because they all overcome. They come in and they tell me their innermost struggles, and their people are going through so much, and a lot of these stories are just horrific in regards to how much people are facing. But I think I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to people that overcome when it seems impossible, and I get to experience that professionally. And I Jane Eyre, is my favorite. I also love Les Miserables.
Mm-hmm.
Victor Hugo, like the classics are really important to me. Wuthering Heights, I don't know why I'm drawn to that, because that's just kind of a crazy story. Those are like my top 3 reads that I read probably at least once a year.
Mm-hmm.
One of those. And yeah, Jane Eyre is probably, I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if I particularly see myself in Jane Eyre,
Mm-hmm.
but I do tend to really gravitate towards that story. So again, I don't know if I've ever seen myself as a particular character, but that's probably my favorite book.
No, I mean, you don't even have to see yourself. Aelin Ashriver Galathinius is a fae baddie. I don't see myself as her, but as you said, how you connect with Jane Eyre, she goes through a lot. And I think I related with the fact that she was fighting actual demons and trying to save her world and stuff. I think symbolically I felt that way in my life right then. Was I felt like everything was on my shoulders and I was just trying to save my reality. So I can totally see the impact and why Jane Eyre would have an impact on you. You are so well in tuned with people fighting battles and seeing their accomplishments for small or big and feeling on a deep level for that. So it's very beautiful, say, like how you just described that. So I love that. I sure love you.
You, honey.
Thanks for doing this with me. Um, anything you wanted to end off with at all? Okay. No, that was perfect. Let's go ahead and close out and then you and I can just chat afterwards. But thank you for being here. We'll definitely have to do another episode. I think this by far was one of the best. So if you want to come back and hang out with me, that'd be great. Okay. Thanks, y'all, for listening. We love ya. See you next Thursday. Bye.